Let's talk about localization feature in Payload. It enables you to translate the content that you create in the CMS. There's also I-18 feature, and the difference is that it's for translating the text in the admin dashboard. In other words, you can think about it like this. I-18N is internal and localization is external. In this video, we'll look at a simple localization example, and I'll mention a few pitfalls you should avoid when setting this up. To get us started, I created a new payload app using this create payload app command. I chose the blank template and initialized a Postgres database. Then I created it and pushed all the changes to a GitHub repo, link to which will be in the description. Alright, let's spin up the dev server and access our CMS. It prompts us to create our first user, so let's do that. I'll give it a simple email and the password will be just password. And to get started with localization, we need to open payload config and add a new property called localization. There are two required params, default locale, which we're gonna pick English for it, and locales. And there are two ways you can specify locales, as strings, like that. This is going to work. If I open, you can see it works, but the labels are ugly. So instead, it's better to use objects. You can see the properties that show up in autocomplete. The code and label are required. We're gonna give it a code, and label is going to be English, and repeat the same for Azerbaijani language. And now we get much nicer labels. If you're going to support Arabic or similar language, you can also specify RTL, which will make the text flow from right to left. That's all it takes to initialize localization in our project. Let me commit this change and we'll continue. So by itself, adding localization is not going to do anything. You can see it updates the URL bar when I switch the locale. And that's all, because payload is not going to assume that you want to localize everything. Instead, payload expects you to be explicit about which fields you want to localize. If you don't know what field is for example, if I open users, so email, updated at, created at, these are fields. I can show you in the code as well. These are empty in this case, but in media case, you can see we have alt text, which is a field. So you would need to specify here localized, true. It's a Boolean flag. And I'll show you what it does in a moment. Let's first create our own collection. I'll call it books. Actually, I'll just copy the media collection and create a new books collection. We'll keep it simple and remove upload property. And for the books, we're gonna have title and content, which will be rich text. We'll make it required as well. Let's save the file and add it to our collections array. Now, if we go back, we'll see the new books collection. We can create a new book. Let's call it Brave New World. And for the content, we're just going to say great book. Save. And now we have a book. If we look at the database, we'll see that we have a book with the title and content just like we specified. Now, notice that the title is a simple string, and I did it on purpose. I created this non-localized field on purpose to show you what will happen if you localize the field when you already have data. So if we come here and specify localized true, you'll see right away in terminal, we get warning that we'll possibly lose our data. The chances are high that you'll lose your data. So don't do this on your production database because the chances are you're going to lose your data. You want to create some kind of a migration script, back up your database, and do it very safely. Now, if I press Y in the terminal to accept the data loss, potential data loss, you'll see that my title is gone. It now lives in the books locales table, but it doesn't live yet because it removed the title column from this table and instead created a new table with books locales. And all the titles for this collection are going to live here. Now, if I go back to the CMS, you can see the title is empty. I can give it a new title, Brave New World, save. Go back to database, and you can see we have one localization for English locale, and it maps to ID of 1, which is first book. By having a relation like this between these two tables, it becomes very robust, and now you can add as many locales as you want for as many books as you want. So let's go back to CMS and add a translation for Azerbaijani. I'll give it a title and the content. If we go back, refresh, you can see we now have translation for Azerbaijani as well. And in essence, that's what localization does. Now, I want to stress that again, that make sure to be careful with your existing database. Now, on dev server, obviously, we don't care that much, but for production database, you want to back up your database, then create a migration script that will take the values. So if you had titles here, it will take that title from the original table and populate the fallback language, whichever you picked. In our case, default locale is English. So make sure to populate English locale with the title that was here, and you should be fine. By the way, I forgot to localize the content as well, and you can tell because it doesn't have that suffix. So you can see if I switch the locale, this one gets the suffix, but this one doesn't. Let's localize it. I'll open the books collection and add this property to content as well. Right away, I should get a warning if I restart the server. And once again, I'll press Y to accept. And now we have the hint for content as well. You can see I once again lost all my data. So that's why you need to be very careful with this. All right, I populated both locales. And now we are ready to query this on front end. Let me commit this change and we'll do just that. Let's open the home page in our browser and modify the page component in our code. I'll delete everything in return statement. We're gonna keep the payload stuff. We don't need the headers. Instead, we're gonna do payload find and specify our books collection. It's gonna give us docs, which we're gonna alias as books, clean up imports, and let's render it in a pre-tag so that we can see it better. And now we can see our books, and because we didn't specify the locale, we are seeing the English translation because in payload config we specified English as our default locale. But if we come here and change it to us, which it actually gives us hint, which is pretty cool, you can see right away we are getting Azerbaijani translations. We can also create simple links to switch between these two locales. For that, I'm gonna wrap this into fragment and add two links. As you can see, we added the links, but they don't do anything by themselves. We need to accept search params and await the locale from it. I'll default it to English. And of course, make sure to make it more robust. You can see we have a lot of magic strings here, which is anti-pattern. Make sure to use a constant in your project. So now that we have access to locale, we can just specify it when querying our books. Now, I showed you this because if you are using some kind of I18 plugin or library, it will most likely give you the locale like so. For example, in next intel, you will get const locale equals await get locale. And then you would pass that locale instead. And there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope that helps. Peace!